AI is here, and it's definitely going to be in a lot of industries something super important. Businesses don't think that it's going to replace community managers. I personally really don't, and if any business thinks it does, then it will be, I don't want to say stupid, but it is, because it takes like the level of interaction away which we have in a community, which cannot be automated. But I think certain tasks that you have in community management definitely can be automated.
Hello and welcome to the Digital Community Leaders Podcast, where we chat with community experts on covering insights and leaving you with practical takeaways. Today we're joined by Celine Riemenschneider, County Community Manager in Germany at Canva. Celine uses her 10 plus years of community leadership experience as she works with Canva Creatives, SMBs, and teachers. I can't wait to chat to Celine about all things community. Let's get started. We are Steadfast Collective. We exist to craft digital applications that bring people together. A team of smart creatives, we are excited by technology, and we always aim to leave the internet in a better place than we found it. Working with many of the UK's leading communities, we use technology as an accelerator to help them grow and engage their members. Our applications resource membership organisations, grow businesses, and create value. We know what it takes to ship, market, and scale applications, and we apply this wealth of background knowledge to everything we do. We're not just another agency. We are community builders. Hi, Celine. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you, Pete?
I am very well. The sun is shining and I get to chat to you today, so I'm very excited.
Me too. Thank you.
So you've been in the community space for a little bit, but currently you're at Canva. Could you tell us a little bit about your role?
Sure thing, of course. So I'm at Canva for a little bit over 3 years now. And I started out with the creators community. I launched the creators community in the German-speaking region 3 years ago. And then kind of took over the role of also a little bit of SMB work, which goes a little bit into marketing and community as well. And since last year, I'm also doing the teachers community at Canva as well. So it's a little bit of everything.
It feels like, from an outsider's point of view, it feels like Canva has gone from a tool that maybe 5 years ago was seen as slightly more of a hobbyist tool to a real like workhorse now, which can do incredible things and is used in, agencies across the world, like at a professional level. Is that the direction that you and your team are like happy to be kind of traveling in?
Yes. I mean, if you have watched Canva Create, we just had this in April. We launched some of our newest features too, and we are definitely very excited to be perceived also as a work tool as well, and not just I always say, create social media posts, what it used to be 10 years ago. It's definitely evolved from that.
I was recently at CMX and I got to chat to Paz, who runs a community out in Australia, and she was saying like how proud Australians are of Canva, and she was like, whenever Canva gets on the stage at a conference, she's like, yeah, Canva, because she's like so excited to see Australia represented, which was really exciting.
How was CMX, by the way?
CMX was very good. It was, it's very intense. It's lots of talking to people, but no, we had an incredible time, actually. It was loads of fun. My second time going, would highly recommend it. So, yeah.
Yes. Thanks.
So your role is kind of split between, like you just mentioned, you kind of oversee various different teams. That must change how you do your day-to-day depending on kind of who you're talking. Could we dig into that a little bit?
My day-to-day, how it looks?
Yeah, well, in terms of, so you mentioned that you have various different kind of groups you look after, and I imagine they all have fairly different needs or fairly different expectations from you. Is that the case, or is everybody fairly similar in terms of expectations of yourself?
No, it is definitely very different, of course, where I think creators at SMBs in that sense, I think are bigger load in my day-to-day work, let's say. Whereas the teachers group is very different. Of course, the type of content that we deliver to teachers cannot be the same as we deliver, of course, to creators as well. But, I try to split my time as evenly as possible. But there's a lot of also work that goes into SMBs because we do, for example, host a lot of webinars. We run a lot of different initiatives and partnerships with them as well. So it does take a lot of time from, ideation stage to, strategizing to actually executing. Yeah. So it's a lot of juggling.
So the teachers community, is that a community of teacher creators or teachers who are using your tools to create resources, etc.?
Teachers who are using Canva, because we have also Canva for education, and it's free for the whole K-12 landscape, so from kindergarten to 12th grade.
Gotcha.
And teachers who qualify, obviously, for it are able to use it for free. Schools as well, and it's very exciting.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. I remember being at school a while ago, and we had some like really quite horrible kind of graphic design software. There was no way our school was going to be able to afford to pay, everyone to have an Adobe license, and to have that kind of access for the children and for the peace of mind for the teachers must be incredible for them.
Definitely. I mean, things are becoming more digitalized in this advanced stage, of course. And I think you have to kind of keep up with it and be visually able to communicate well with kids at a very young age already as well. And they just take it with them, of course, as they grow up and then go to, college, university, or work later on as well. So it will continue throughout their entire life.
And that's so true, actually, because regardless of whether a child grows up to be a chef or a designer or a scientist, having some level of, I can create something which is visually appealing to express a point I'm trying to get across, whether it's a menu or a poster about a new scientific thesis, is a really useful skill to have. And the fact that you're able to help as Canva kind of with these teachers embed that into people from an early age that's an incredible kind of gift to be able to give people.
I think so too.
And in terms of the various communities you're managing, how do you work with them to kind of create a sense of belonging? Because obviously you've mentioned their SMBs and you've mentioned teachers. Both groups are fairly busy people. So how do you kind of create that sense of belonging?
Well, as mentioned, with SMBs, it's a bit different because there's not like a clear, like designated space for them. We do deliver a lot of, resources to them, host a lot of workshops and webinars, and they're more driven into, having a business solution for them and kind of solving problems. I think it's more quick wins. Whereas, for example, with the creator community, of course, as it is in most communities as well, but it's a bit more of a creative, people that are different. They like recognition, of course. And I think, finding your great members, of course, who are very active, engaged in there and kind of, championing them. Having rituals, I always say like having rituals, something, and consistency is very important, whether it's, every Friday we share something, Fun Friday or, fun facts or any kind of questions you ask them within your community, or whether it's every Monday you send your community newsletter or anything else like a special post. I feel consistency when people know when to expect what definitely does help them in feeling like, kind of belonging into that space as well. But I also think enforcing conversations between members, kind of connecting them, because it's not just supposed to be, a digital space where they can consume information and then, go away. The, idea of having a community, of course, is you want people to be able to exchange ideas, have communication with them. So I do try to make sure I can enable this, and it works the best with creators. They're very open. It's a lovely community of people. They'd love to talk to each other, inspire each other, host workshops. So makes it a little easier for me.
The consistency thing as well, especially makes a lot of sense for me, because I think consistency for me when I'm in a community just builds out that sense of trust that the community isn't going anywhere and it's somewhere that I can invest my time because it's being curated and kind of managed in a safe way. And it then makes me feel like I can invest my time there rather than this is like a fleeting kind of phase, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And safety, you said too. I think that's also important, making sure they know it's a safe and trusted space where they can kind of, talk freely and they know that we do not welcome anything that is, negative or spammy or something, and that we definitely take action against that, so that they can talk freely around the topics that really do interest them. I think that's a key component of this as well.
I just want to touch. So you mentioned, obviously, the fact you're overseeing kind of the Germany region for these different groups. Is it only German speaking, or is it primarily German speaking?
It's German speaking, yeah.
Okay, so all of your community activity is in German. You don't have to worry about any kind of multi-language things?
No, we have other wonderful CMs that take care of other regions.
Okay, interesting. Okay, fun. In terms of kind of letting people know that your community exists and marketing kind of the community you're involved in now and maybe ones you've been involved in the past, have you got any ideas or methods that tend to be quite successful when you come to pushing people kind of to the top of the funnel of your community?
You mean like
marketing?
Getting more people into a community, yeah. And just so I understand it correctly. Well, I always say, number one, before you start anything, it's very important to kind of define your why, as in your value proposition as to why a community exists. Because I always look at it this way too, when I look at other communities for myself. What is this community about? What do I gain out of being a part of it? Because we all have different interests and things as well. And those interests might have community groups too. But is it what I actually expect I will get out of it, that I really do get out of that community? So that should, I think, be really crystal clear from the beginning on. I do strongly believe, especially if it's more, let's say, an exclusive community and referral programs, kind of word of mouth, or reaching out to people, especially in the early stages yourself, where you feel they might fit your community or they might benefit from it, to reach out to them. Which is a little bit of work on your behalf then, because you have to, linger in other communities or, social channels and kind of, try to lure them in and be like, hey, please join this community, because I think, you really greatly benefit from it. But as I mentioned, referrals is always great if you already have a few great community members in, or, they're already big fans and really want to champion your community and help you out. Then it's the best thing to tap into their communities, their networks of people where they think they might also, want to join or benefit. Especially if they have, friends or colleagues, I always feel they feel more confident to be like, hey, let's be in this together. It's really great. I've had a lot of fun. You should join too. And this definitely works really well.
In terms, you obviously mentioned there again, kind of you have these most engaged users and sometimes they bring people along. Do you have like a formal super users or advocate program where they might get extra badges or Canva swag or any kind of recognition? Is there kind of a formal program around that? Or is it ad hoc as you kind of see fit?
No, we do. For us, it's called Canva Masters.
Okay.
But for the general community, we have different programs as well. And creators, we can also have super creators, but we have Canva Masters. So it's like different levels of gamification, let's say, in one way or another, right? In community, that does work for us. Super creators, for example, are ones who are really highly talented designers, and they just, kind of like the creme de la creme, I like to say, from the others, which, defines them as a little different. So it's like a really exclusive, top of the funnel, basically, creators we have. Canvassators is more about community advocates, so ambassadors, you would call them, with us, it's, a wordplay, Canvassador. And we have a program for them, of course, where we want to be able to champion the people who are spreading the brand love on behalf of us out to the world as well. So they have their own designated space and community for just Canvassadors. And we have certain other ways of recognizing them as well.
In terms of various roles you've been in and community kind of managers as a whole, what can you do as a community manager to help align your metrics with what your business are looking for in terms of kind of return on investment?
There's different ways, of course, you can look into it. I think community does give, it's one of those things, right? I feel some businesses, you argue for the ROI and business value you get from community. It's always this tricky thing for community managers. I think the most important one is, especially if you have a product, you get a lot of product feedback from your community because they're the first members. They're the ones who are already eager and excited to use your product. So you can get, like people do study groups and stuff, you can do exactly that with your community and have either all of them or a selected few members, of course, to kind of bring in and test the product. I know we do this, and I think a lot of other people should definitely do it because it's the best way to get feedback before you launch something, or if you are going to launch it, progressively. It's great to see because, for example, if you're a product manager, I'm sure you look into so many different variables, but you don't see what the actual user or community member makes use. They might come up with something completely different you didn't think of. So I think this is extremely valuable. I have also, in the past and, at the moment too, kind of worked with UGC communities that, obviously help creating content for the platform, which is really valuable too, because you have just, foregone, I think, so much in costs you would be spending on if you were to hire people for that, or if you were supposed to have like big campaign managers and everything. Here it's with creators. I worked before, I'm sure you've seen, at Yelp, for example, which is also, a platform where people write reviews. And without those people and writing their reviews, the platform wouldn't exist. So I think it's very valuable, of course, to have members be able to contribute in this way. And if it's, of course, possible, some community models, this works as well. That you might be spending money on something, but there might be a return on investment for, let's say, every dollar you spend, how much do you get in return? To be able to track this, I think, is really valuable to be able to prove the, business value you get from having that community.
Yeah, absolutely. And the product feedback one's really interesting. Often it's only when you kind of see a product out in the wild and you start receiving feedback, or you kind of watch somebody actually using it, you realize they use that tool in quite a bizarre way, and they might have their own little workarounds for something they're trying to do, and you never even considered somebody would use your tool in that way. And it's only when it's kind of out in the wild you're like, oh, they're using that tool to select that thing rather than using the tool we built. Maybe we haven't properly labeled it or educated people. And it's always funny, as folk who build software, watching people use your thing, which you think is really obvious, and then it goes out into the wild and you're like, oh, okay, we didn't make this clear enough on how to use this properly.
Yeah. Definitely.
I've spoke to a few people in the past, and they've mentioned that they've started communities from afresh, and sometimes they get asked internally, like, so what is it you do? And then when they start seeing this really engaged user group come together, all of a sudden the sales team and the product team and the customer support team all want to kind of be like, oh, I see where this is going. Can I now start doing this thing or this thing? And it's quite funny that everyone can be a little bit skeptical to start with, and then they start seeing this thriving, bubbling group, and then all of a sudden they're the ones who want product feedback and so on and so on. So
definitely, I think this is the stigma we all have to live with in the community world.
In terms of, so I imagine there's lots of metrics that you track in terms of your role, and I imagine you probably have access to great dashboards and folk who are great at data and whatnot. Is there any metrics in your world which are maybe slightly less conventional, which you use to track the health of your community or various communities you've been involved in?
We use very great analytics, as you mentioned, of course, as well. So there's like various things we have insights to from community, but also what they create and everything, which I think is fantastic. I started really loving analytics now much more than I ever did before in data. It's great. But I think one of the most important ones lately for us, for me, and I think for other communities, this should be very important too. And this is something I'm trying to crack as well, is once you onboard a new person, for example, into your community, what's the time span it takes for them to get activated? And I think this is really important, because the longer it takes, I feel turning them into becoming an active person is that much harder I can't tell you like an exact percentage now to be like, oh, okay, if it's past, 20 days, then the drop is that much. But you definitely see like a correlation between if they, let's say, within the first week start, posting, asking questions or doing something, it's usually off to a great start. Let's say that they will continue that way. Whereas if they wait for more than 10 days to do something, I feel it's just from there on, it's harder to then, pull them back in and try to get them to actually contribute or do something. So one of the definitely key big things to track.
Yeah, time to activity is an interesting one. How do you have a specific definition for an active user in your community?
Active is for us, of course, participating in the community, but more importantly for us, of course, is if they have started creating content, as in if they've activated their in the creator form, for example, their creator profile, had they done something on their profile, created their first template. That's of course the most relevant and important for us.
So are you constantly thinking of new ideas on how you can reduce the friction from sign up to active? Because obviously it sounds like the shorter that distance, the more likely they are to become engaged and stick around kind of week on week.
Yes, I mean, I think this applies to most communities. I don't think it's just something special for us. Definitely not. If I think of all the other work I've done before or clients I have worked with, it applies to all schemes of community to make sure, okay, that person is in, let's get it activated,
Yeah, for sure. When I was at CMX, the conference that I attended before CMX, which was called Startup Grind, it's in the same theatre on the same week. So it's quite convenient for me. There was a theme that ran. Normally there's like a fairly heavy theme that runs through all of the conversations. The main theme I heard over and over again this week was speed, was how quickly can we get the customer the thing they need. So obviously there was a lot of conversation around AI, but the actual output of that was, okay, if we're going to integrate AI into this tool or this platform or whatever it is, the focus needs to be speed. We need to get it done. We need to get the customer what they want quicker, because people are so busy. They're trying to move on to their next thing. So I would imagine, if a community member is signing up for a forum and the email to verify the email takes 10, 15 minutes to come through, by the time it comes through, they would have already thought of something else and they'll be on to their next job. They're not going to hang around. And it is a case of, speed is such an important part of community management these days.
We don't have patience anymore, right? So like I said, if something takes 15 minutes for the email verification to come, it's a big problem, definitely.
Yeah. Especially for the supporter community. I think I was listening to a panel at CMX. I'll stop mentioning CMX soon. And they were saying that they've got a very big forum. I'm pretty sure it was Evan from HubSpot. And he was saying, we still have a human element, but we use AI to try and answer someone's question quickly. And then we then ask them if that question was the answer was correct or not. And if they say no, then we obviously intervene with a human will then come through and answer the question. But I thought that was a really interesting way of automating something, but trying to keep the human element rather than just being like, we're going to throw a chatbot at this and hope it fixes everything. But actually people, if they're asking a question like, how do I reset my passwords? They don't want to wait a day for an answer. They want the answer instantly.
Of course.
And it's so tough as well. As a community manager, you're already juggling so many things. You can't respond to every single, activity in your community. And it must be such a juggle to try and balance that in your head.
Definitely. And I'm sure I feel if I don't write certain things down, I don't know if you have this as well, I might forget because of just the overload of other things you have coming in, right? You have like ad hoc things coming in. Can you do this quickly? Or another person writes to you and then you kind of like forget, especially if you have, hovered away from the conversation, it's already been read. So it doesn't look unread to you.
Yes, yeah.
If you don't then take notice of it, it will just kind of drown in your pool of everything else you're doing. So you have to be careful with that.
I know exactly what you mean. Okay, so final question. Here we go. Where do you see community management heading in the next couple of years? Like, what do you think the evolution of what you're currently doing and what we're currently doing as community managers looks like?
Well, I think you just mentioned something which opens up into this topic as well. As we know, AI is here, and it's definitely going to be in a lot of industries something super important. We just have to make sure that, businesses don't think that it's going to replace community managers. I personally really don't. And if any business thinks it does, then it will be, I don't want to say stupid, but it is. Because it takes like the level of interaction away, which we have in a community, which cannot be automated. But I think certain tasks that you have in community management definitely can be automated, whether it's, welcome, messages or emails or certain DMs that are part of, your consistency, as we said before, that it can be automated. But definitely there has to be a human person there as well, because the real conversations you have, the questions that get asked, and helping people out or hosting workshops and things, those are things you just cannot obviously automate on AI. I also think for the future, there will be a lot more creator communities. It's going, everyone's a creator by now. Everyone has the tools to become one. So there will be, and I had, since you mentioned CMX so much, I had my talk at CMX, I think it's been 3 years now ago, and it was called The Future of Creators. I think I forgot my title, but I actually had now. And it was exactly about this, which is, I think, more and more prominent now, that there will be creator-led communities for them and their communities, but also vice versa. Businesses are more trying to make creator communities for their own creators and try to nurture them in a community space as well, which will also open up the doors to having more micro communities where, it's more niche, it's more small, it's very driven by certain, interests and types, instead of having like a really broad one with 10,000 members where kind of everybody goes under. And it's much harder, I think, to track when it's that big. So I think those are the 3 key things that are definitely going to be happening sooner than later.
Wonderful. What a place to end. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, thank you for sharing all those wonderful insights.
Thank you so much, Pete. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you next time. This is the Digital Community Leaders Survey 2023. And this is the Digital Community Leaders Survey 2023 second edition. Back in 2023, we released a beautiful printed book. And due to its popularity, we sold out of printed copies. Rather than reprinting, we listened to your feedback and we included 40% more content in this copy. We created the report to be a data-backed handbook for building the foundations of your brand's community. For instance, did you know that 70% of communities we surveyed saw growth over the last 12 months? And we know those businesses are growing too. Other metrics we dive into include community growth, biggest pain points, community purpose, what are other community managers measuring, funding, participation, C-suite involvement, and much, much, much more. In this book, we present the data and expert insights from Richard Gott, Michelle Goodall, Vincent Boone, Keen Bakatari, Rosie Sherry, Matt Sullivan, Laura Roth, Nicole Saunders, Blaise Grimes-Vaught, and Jan Carlisle. We've also included frameworks such as the community archetypes, ecosystem of impact, community participation ladder, and the community first culture nexus. There's so much in here, I can't wait for you to get your hands on this new edition. You can order your printed copy from Amazon today, or download a digital copy for free at digitalcommunityleaders.com.